Alright, so quick comic review, because I have to return these in like a half hour from now. Not even, actually. It's not exactly 10 o'clock right now. But anyways, get on with it. Quick comic review. I'm going to try and do this in like 2 sentences or less, but not like skimp out on the review itself. First up is the backups. A very mediocre book that you would have no reason to read. The author isn't even a good person in real life, so there is no reason to read this book. Other than if you're like me and you just want to read this out of pure curiosity, I do recommend it. It's not awful. I didn't regret reading this. I was never bored. Had a decent pacing, all around a decent book. I would give it a 5 out of 10. Whiteout, the antithesis to sequel-itis. The sequel is much better than the original. The sequel is so good that it actually makes me want to reread the original to see if the criticisms I had the first time around still stick around the second time around. But time will tell if that does end up happening. Still a great Greg Rucka story. And proof that he, even with his first, I believe this is his first ever comic. It said something about his being one of his first. But for a first comic, this is it's much better than a lot of other people's firsts. So gotta give credit where credit is due. Night Eaters, just as good as the first, but it is you feel the length. There's not like a whole lot of dialogue. I would argue that Monstrous has more dialogue, but it definitely has the Marjorie Liu stamp of having a good amount of dialogue, and that makes you feel just about each and every page that you read. Still investing, but it took me 2 days to read this, and it really shouldn't have. And this is why I'm kind of glad that there's a hiatus for book 3, so I have more time to prepare myself for yet another book that's going to take me 2 days to read when it really should only take me 1. That's kind of a criticism. It's more of a criticism than a nitpick, if you know me. Because even with these books, this is an OGN, so I like to read them all in one sitting. And sometimes I can do that just fine. Like backups, I do that just fine with. But this one was definitely try my patience here and there. Not too bad. Big Jim and the White Boy. I can recommend this wholeheartedly. So I do the out of 10 reviews, and I go back around these. I always forget to. I start with doing it, then I always forget. I always start with it, and like, oh, okay, I'm forgetting. Am I with the next book? No, you do. All right. Big Jim. A very good, an absolutely perfect pick for any elementary, and I'd say 8 and up. So any middle school, I was just to say middle school, any middle school, high schooler to read for their social studies project on slavery, this is a good pick to pick for a book report for that same slavery social studies project I was talking about, but I couldn't put 2 words together. Okay, it's just, okay. Got a notification that I got no battery. Thankfully, it wasn't a Anna storage. So I got that yesterday for no reason. Anyway, I hate that I can't hear it click when if it's charging or not, because sometimes my chargers don't work because they're old. All right, Gem and the Holograms. It gets better as it goes along, but it never wowed me, and I honestly could be just fine without reading volume 2. And like it says, I like 5 volumes of this series. Yeah, I'd be fine without reading any more of the series. But there is a part of me that kind of wants to read more. But nothing, like, it's not like a must-read kind of thing. It's just okay. See, the out of 10 reviews really make these come full circle. Midnighter Volume 2. It's funny how the bonus stories are a lot less forgettable than the actual 12-issue run is. And there's just 2 additional bonus stories. They decided because they wanted to charge us, honestly, $14.99 is not a bad price, but because they wanted to add a little bit more than just 5 issues, I guess, want to go all out with Volume 2, they added in 2 classic issues from the original Wildstorm run of Midnighter, and those stories were a lot more memorable than the 12-issue, anything from the 12-issue run. It's not bad, it's just forgettable. And honestly, I do recommend it, because I did enjoy reading it. It's just once I finished each issue and went on to the next one, I was like, you very well could just had every issue be a one shot and completely unrelated to the last issue, and I wouldn't have noticed a difference if you hadn't done that. And that's really not good to say. A good thing to say about a book like this. Suicide Squad Volume 4, a pretty decent set of stories. The last one especially is really damn good, and it goes to show that New 52 is kind of gets too much hate, honestly. Like, I don't understand why people hate the New 52 so much, because all the criticisms they have honestly aren't really present here. Yeah, it is a bit grimdark, but not super grimdark. You know, the right amount of grimdark. Or grim. I shouldn't say grimdark, but you know what I mean. It's not. It's DC. You know, it's not like it's Zack Snyder grimdark or Tom King Heroes in Crisis grimdark. It's the regular DC universe grimdark. Like even saying grimdark sounds like I'm giving it too much shit. Suicide Squad Most Wanted Deadshot, a pretty underrated book, but not super underrated. Just underrated in the sense that I'm surprised I've never even heard of this spin-off Suicide Squad series. There's more than just Deadshot for Most Wanted, and I am anticipating reading more, even though they're not all written by Brian Buccellato. They're not all written by the same guy. This one is written by Brian Buccellato. I think the next one of them is written by I can't remember. I'm not gonna try to remember. But this one, pretty decent. It's more like an 8 out of 10. It's 7.5. It's not a spectacular read, but its strengths far outweigh its weaknesses. The only real weakness is there's some pacing issues here and there. Batman One Bad Day Bane. My pick of the week thus far. And I'm including, even though I'm doing these in several parts, at least 3. I say 2. 2 if I can help it. I will still count this as I also count the pick of the week as one in that whole entire pile. Not one per part of the comic reviews, but one in the whole entire stack of books that I got. So it's not gonna be like pick of the week for this video is this. Now it's gonna be pick of the week for the stack of books. So far, this is the pick of the week. Enough said. Joshua Williamson writes that, and he's a writer that like I haven't read a whole lot from. The more I think about it, but so it always feels like he's a newer writer because I feel like I learned about his. I feel like I only heard his name be mentioned like maybe 5 years ago, and so he always feels like he's a lot newer. But he's been around for a little while, a longer time than that. I would say at least 10 years, because Ghost had its 10-year anniversary recently. Batman Heart of Hush, the sequel that is almost better than the original. I don't honestly argue it is better than the original. Does everything that the first one tried to do, and feel like every criticism I had, or every criticism anybody else had for the first one, is completely null and void. Paul Dini must have had the same problems with the original Hush, so he rectifies just about every mistake that comic made, and he makes a sequel to a groundbreaking original that deserves to be talked about in the same breath as we talk about Hush. The Other Side. It's funny to think that this is a great advertisement for comics in general, not just independent comics, but comics in general, where a comic can make you feel just as much as a regular novel will. Now, to us graphic novel comic readers, that goes without saying, but there's still a good amount of people that still think comics are funny books and they're all for kids. And this is a perfect advertisement to not only are they not just for kids, but they can be for adults too, but they can also be extremely resonant. And the fact that this is written by Jason Aaron, who I don't think ever fought in the Vietnam War. I think he was just born at that time. Like he's like 1960 at the oldest, probably even older. I don't know, but I feel like he didn't fight in the Vietnam War. It's incredible that he understands a lot about the Vietnam War, which it goes without saying. I know, because by that point everyone knew about the Vietnam War and who really like what went wrong and what went on in that time, but still a damn good book. I Kill Giants. So it's gonna be a review of the movie too. But this one, come on, brain. I'm gonna say a lot. I'm not gonna say anything about this book. I'm just gonna say how I felt about it. I thought it was really good. Everyone should read it. That's all I'm gonna say. I would say the going blind is the best way to go into this book, because if I say anything more, I will start to spoil things I shouldn't spoil. Like when you allude to something and people kind of draw conclusions. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So watch the comic, read the comic, then watch the movie. They're both worth your time. And finally, The Witches of World War II. Much like with Whiteout, it gets better as it goes along, and it gets so good towards the end that it made me want to reread the first few chapters to see if it was just whatever mindset I get in when I read books the first time I don't like them, and then I completely change that mindset. It's not like changing the mindset, it's whatever, something happens, because I'll read a book for the second time like only a few months later and feel the exact opposite way. 9.9 out of 10, I like it a lot more the second time around. I think there was like maybe one time, and I can't even think of it off the top of my head, where I read a book a second time and like as much as I did the first time. But again, like pretty much 10 out of 10 times I have come out 100% of the time I've come out liking the book a lot more I did a second time around. And that, as you say, is that. Nice, only 11 minutes long. Alright.